So, shall we now praise the Rings of Power for giving old Tom his lines back? This is the Review of Champions, and I'm your host, Grandmaster. With me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Scar has to offer. Let me introduce them to you. First up, voice only, Mr. Lord Deathman. How are you?
I come to you now at the turn of the tide.
Ooh, that's always good. The White Wizard. And showing his beautiful face on camera. Murph, how are you, man?
I'm good, but I don't have a quote prepared.
Oh.
I wish I did.
You shall not pass, man. You shall not pass. Today we're going to talk about episode 4 of season 2 of the Rings of Power. But before we do, I want to ask you all to help us out. Like and share this video. Subscribe to our channel and join our forum at sakar.freeforms.net. There's a link in the description below. Get to know us, join our shows. We would love to have you on them. You can become a champion yourself. Consider this your final warning. After this point, we have spoilers. So if you haven't seen this week's episode yet, do that first and then check out our review. So we first got 3 reintroduction episodes. But now actually we needed some things to start progressing story-wise. My question to the panel is, did they? And I'm going to start with you, Mr. Lord Deathman. Did things start to progress? Can I have your quick thoughts on episode 4?
I am enjoying the show, and dare I say, thoroughly enjoying the show. I think that they've found a storytelling cadence and pacing that really works for me. They've gotten past some of the awkward growing pains and setup of the first season. And I like the fact that they are pretty able to gracefully move from lighter material that has a little bit of humor and a lighter touch to darker material where there's more urgency and that there's a feeling of peril. I think they're moving between the stories, not exactly seamlessly. It wasn't a perfect episode, but I did enjoy it a whole lot, except for a few moments I'll talk about in my deep dive where the lights got turned off for some reason. In the middle of the forest.
It's a trend. Murph, you got what you wished for.
Yep, it's a 10.
Okay, we're done, people. This will conclude. No, Murph.
Yeah, I was thoroughly excited the second that I don't remember how the introduction exactly began, but once I realized it was Tom Bombadil, who that was my last request on the last show, was like, I just want to see him in live action. I totally forgot, if I even knew, that he was announced already to be a part of the show. But yeah, I mean, he's a fan favorite character for a reason, and I loved him in this. I thought it was great. I thought his scenes were great. And I thought the rest of the episode was pretty awesome too. A lot of good action sequences. Pretty decent character developments, and I really think a lot of it's really coming together to make an entertaining season 2 already. And I feel like it just began, but we're already like halfway through the season, you know?
Yeah, I agree. We recently watched a show, which shall not be named, where we kept waiting for something to happen that was interesting, and it never did. And this show actually really stepped on the gas this episode, and we didn't even see the dwarves or something in Numenor. Okay, so I'm excited for next week actually already. So no, I really enjoyed this episode. I read somebody fell asleep watching the first 3 episodes of season 2, but I can't imagine he did during this one. But yeah, it was really great. To me. So we're any negatives on this week?
Honestly, off the top of my head, the top of my head, I can't really think of many negatives. I didn't write any of them down. So the only thing No, I'm gonna say no because the Numenorian storyline, which was the one that I said I wasn't interested at all, they left it out of this, and I actually totally forgot it was a storyline until you just mentioned them. And the dwarves, honestly, could probably easily be cut anyway. So this felt like easily the most streamlined episode, where I didn't feel like there was anything that I missed. You know what I mean? Like I didn't miss any of the storylines that they didn't include, and all the storylines they did include, I felt like we're moving forward productively. Um, so I really don't have anything negative to say about this episode at all. Oddly enough, I'm sure I
Okay.
can nitpick and find something, but you know.
No need. Just praise it then.
Mhm. Uh, so yeah, I guess starting with Galadriel and Elrond, I thought their quest was fine. I thought the action sequence in the woods was good. Could have been better if you could see a little bit. I guess that's a mild criticism. Um, but I thought it was fine. I really thought their spats were actually handled quite well, and I thought that throughout the course of this episode in particular, it reinforces Galadriel's trust in the ring, because that's been something I've struggled with since episode 1 or whenever. It's like, you know, that Sauron created this ring, and I get that they don't understand the whole concept of the rings yet. You know, they don't know that it's going to lead to really bad stuff, but they just think it's like a weapon or a tool or whatever that they could use for good. And so far, it's proving her right. Like she gets a warning telepathic moment of the woods that proves right, and she is able to heal the other elf, presumably with the power of the ring, because it surprised everyone. And I just think like that stuff goes a long way towards making it make sense that she would still like kind of trust this ring and trust like its creation, and you know, push the use of it moving forward until, you know, the ball drops on Sauron, you know. But I like where that ended in particular, with Galadriel going to, or getting captured by Adar and the orcs. I thought that was all real good. The Harfoots and the stores stuff, I feel like is obviously setting up the long-term goal of showing us how the Shire comes to be, or the settlement of the Shire, or whatever. And I actually think that they're giving us enough hints that the stranger, I feel like maybe the stranger is going to have a hand in perhaps the creation of the Shire. And I don't know all the book lore, so I don't know if it already exists somewhere. But they've shown him using like nature magic and creating like plant growth and stuff like that, you know, blooming fruits and stuff like that on trees. And I feel like if there's a large desert area, I can already see him like creating this grassy, you know, farmable land for the hobbits to live in particular. And I kind of like the separate groups of hobbits, in them kind of having totally different lifestyles and stuff like that. Obviously, I think they're going to all settle down into one, but this makes sense that like some of them would trend towards like the wandering type as opposed to the stand put type and stuff like that. You know, it just leads into all the lore. The stranger, I'm kind of, I guess this is another mild negative that I didn't think about, but I'm over the mystery of it. I know I mentioned it last week, but either tell me he's Gandalf or tell me he's not Gandalf. You know what I mean? Just, I understand him trying to find a wand and whatever, harness his powers, become his full self, but I just, it's a season and a half and we're still calling him the stranger or whatever, you know.
Yeah, but
Give him its name. You know,
yeah,
and if
but wouldn't it make more sense that it's Saruman? I mean, the older wizard, the leader of the wizard. Wouldn't it make more sense if it's Saruman?
I would actually, I'm hoping that there is a sensical curveball, that it's not just Gandalf and we're wasting time like pretending it isn't, or not telling us it is. But as of right now, it's just hard for me not to like, there so much of it already lines up with like, oh, this is Gandalf, you know, just the feel of it. And it's probably just the
Mm-hmm.
Hobbit connection, but
Mm-hmm.
that's enough for people who are really just familiar with the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit, and the movies, the books and the movies, you know, to just connect those two dots, to where if they pull a random name out of a hat who has no lore, to casual audiences, like that's not going to land well, I don't think. So if it's Saruman, that would be interesting too. I didn't think of that until now. I also don't know who the Dark Wizard is. I don't know if it matters. He's a superficial antagonist. On the surface, him, the masked people, the female elf wizards, they're all kind of the same beat to me.
But it's just that, Saruman only turned evil during the Lord of the Rings era, or the Third Age, the end of the Third Age, I should say. So it will, and Saruman was clearly the head of the order, as they say. So if he's the first wizard or the second wizard, because the Dark Wizard was first, but this wizard is supposed to stand up against Sauron and the Dark Wizard, as Tom Bombadil said. So it would make sense for this particular wizard to be Saruman, because there will be others maybe, but to me, I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't Saruman. To me personally, but that's just me.
Yeah, but like if just sitting here thinking about it, like the only two names that do make any sense is Gandalf or Saruman.
Yeah,
I do kind of hope it is Saruman now, just because that would give us a different layer to that character who, turns bad at the very beginning of the Lord of the Rings, and that's all we can remember him as. We don't know him as anything else really. So it would add an interesting layer without dipping into the Silmarillion or whatever else,
Mm-hmm.
The Isildur stuff. This is probably the one storyline where I almost want it to slow down, because like he's known this Estrid girl for like a day, and I get that, like, trying times and romance and all that, but like it already has gone through like a mode of betrayal and then forgiveness and then romantic interest, and now we're in this awkward like Three's Company situation where there's two romantic interests for the one girl, and where's that going to go? It's obviously going to go for hard feelings and stuff like that. So that's a little bit shaky for me. But I loved everything to do with the Ents in this episode. I love the Ents in general. I mean, they're fantastic. But I loved in particular, like the Cherry Blossom one, the female Ent. Her like freak out, her like rage at everything, especially, she even straight up asks Arundel, like, have you ever taken an axe to a tree? And he honestly says yes, and she's just like, I'm gonna smash you now. Like her rage over this would just immediately like endeared me to her in particular. And I mean, the Ents are so likable that I know they're not going to be, but I wish they were in every episode a little bit, but they'd probably just steal the show, and then it would all be about the Ents, which wouldn't be so bad, but then we wouldn't get more Tom Bombadil, or would we? So either way, really enjoyable episode. I loved it.
Yeah. And the Ents actually look better than in the movies.
They look fantastic.
Yeah. So, Lord Deathman, you had some criticism, mild criticism of this episode, and then you can praise it.
Yeah, my mild criticism comes at this sort of contemporary choice in lighting and cinematography to completely black out whole scenes of a dramatic presentation, I guess, to kind of create this naturalistic lighting by candlelight or torch in the forest. And it really took me out of it for a while, because then you're not following the story and you're kind of like struggling to find light and characters and see the dramatic beats that are going on. So that was really the only serious problem that I had with the episode overall. A problem that I have with this series, which I think is exemplified in this episode, is the kind of Lord of the Rings member berries. That there's a lot of callbacks to the Lord of the Rings movies, which we know is the future of this world. And I think rather than sort of trying to crib lines or give lines or actions or do these kind of rhyming poetry things, as George Lucas likes to call it, giving the actions of characters from Lord of the Rings and dialogue to people in the power of the rings, they should kind of try to let the show have its own identity. It feels like such an insecure and weak move. And I agree with people who are being, honestly overly critical about that. But it's something that they should slow down, if not bring to a halt entirely. But I continue to be captivated by the story of the elves, especially Galadriel and Elrond's interactions. The fact that we've changed the dynamic and Galadriel is kind of on the back foot. She's not this kind of super confident, can do no wrong figure as she was in the first. And I think they're doing a fantastic job of bringing Elrond to be a proxy character for the audience, right? So he really is a character that you can get into the story through. And I just love it whenever that actor and that character is on screen. Yeah, it's a great performance, and I think it's a very well-written character at the same time. I don't mind the hopscotching we're doing between all of these worlds, and I'm not sure why it's not bothering me. I guess it would be nice if they lingered in some places a little longer and cut some things a little short. But the fact that we're moving to all these different concerned parties and seeing their perspective on what's happening in a larger narrative with this larger danger, I really enjoy that. I actually think that that's fairly sophisticated story writing, and it allows you to kind of see different perspectives. People are at different levels of intelligence and information. People have a different stake in things. Some people, are hating the Black Enemy and the Dark Lord for one reason, while others are hating him for another reason, while others still embrace him. I kind of like, the fact that it has that kind of variety, if you will. I also love the performances. This, pointing out the Ents, as Merv did, that's acting. As that, what's that guy on SNL, John Lovitz, as he would say, that's acting. It just that everybody on the show, I think, is dialing their performances up to like a 9 in terms of investing in their characters. Galadriel, the actress who plays her, everything she comes out saying is so self-serious, and there's this urgency that she's able to put behind anything. This seems like the work of the Dark Lord. I just love it. It just feels like going to this incredibly great stage play of an old European medieval story that's unfolding in this theatrical. I'm not one for musicals, and I don't get out to Broadway much, but I could see how this bigger kind of theatrical acting is kind of missed in a world where we favor more naturalistic, Brando style performances. This just gives somebody a chance to be, bigger in terms of how their performance can be. I am having a little bit of problems with like the nameless wizard, the stranger, that kind of thing. I also, am theorizing that this is Sauron. That's what I'm sticking to. I said that last season. I still believe it this season that we're going to get that heel turn, or maybe they're just trying to say, hey, Sauron didn't start off as a bad wizard. That was, he got seduced by the Dark Lord along the way. But in a world where we have these fantasy, these really impressive large characters like Gandalf and Saruman and Sauron and Radagast, do we really need like generic dark wizard? They really just kind of need to say this is someone from the mythology, instead of adding these weird side characters that they kind of refuse to commit to giving any identity, not even a known one, but like no identity. It's like you don't even get a name. You just get to wander around this story as like random person. So they really do need to bring that to an end. And I know that there are a lot of lore nerds out there who have read the Silmarillion and they've read the Lord of the Rings and they've read these books multiple times. They know the timelines. from the beginning of the world all the way to, where we leave off in the story. And I get that they're upset that Amazon is playing fast and loose with that timeline, but guys, we got to accept it. A season and a half now, they are writing their own story, right? You are either for this and you can watch the show, or you can take a powder and say, this isn't for me. I'm more of a purist. I'll wait for whoever owns the rights to the Silmarillion to try and get this right. So I'm not really understanding all of those kinds of complaints. I do get that it's not an ideal situation, but again, just adapting the stories and telling them verbatim the way they happened in the book, I don't think that would be particularly interesting to me. Even though it seems intuitively like what you should do. But getting back to this episode, though, loved all of the work that the elves do, because elves are awesome. The battles that they had with what are those fellas called? The ghostly fellas in the forest. I'm trying to read through some of this lore to get through.
Barrow-wights.
The Barrow-wights, thank you.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed that sequence, and I love the solve for it, that you had to kind of get their weapons to kind of permanently put them down. I enjoyed that confrontation. I enjoy the storyline with Isildur and him and the wild. I should call her a wild woman. And how that's unfolding. It is a little Three's Company, and it is a little like TV-ish, but I'm still there for it. Look, let's have a little romance in this thing. I'm not against it. So all I can say is I enjoyed this episode a lot. Loved me some elf actions. The Harfoot stores kind of thing in terms of the different factions of the way, we're getting hobbits, I guess, of the past is coming together nicely for me. I enjoyed Tom Bombadil. I'm not like one of those guys that was like chomping at the bit to get Tom Bombadil into the story. But now that I have seen the character and the actor that's doing the performance, I'm intrigued, and I want to see the next episode, and I want to see if he can help this wizard get his identity and kind of move the story forward and the mission forward. So I'm consistently liking this. Is it a perfect show? No. Was this a perfect episode? No. But I think that this is a sumptuous kind of very involving fantasy level that can work for a lot of people at a lot of different levels if you're not so married to the way it unfolded in the lore, and you're not like a Tolkienologist who has a PhD and every single detail of this has to work out like the books. Really like this episode.
Yeah. Well, I have nothing to add to what you guys said. You took all the words out of my mouth. I also very much enjoyed this week's episode, and loved Tom Bombadil, loved everything that was happening, like I said before, I can't wait to see episode 5. You know what? Let's just move on to a rating for this week's episode, and I'm going to start with you, Mr. Lord Deathman.
Yeah, I want to give this episode a solid 8. I thought it was great. Again, entertaining. It balanced the light and the dark aspects of the story. And again, I think they've done a wonderful job of outgrowing some of the stilted pacing and false mysteries of the last season. So, 8 out of 10.
Murph?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that I don't necessarily want Tom Bombadil to drive the plot. He's best left as kind of a mysterious enigma that is far above all of the problems of Middle-earth, and he most of the time could care less. But good.
Well, I saw an interesting. I'm still on TikTok sometimes, and I saw an interesting discussion still from another podcast saying that basically Tom Bombadil's God. Because actually Tolkien used some words from the Bible where Jesus said something like "I am," which basically or he is or something, and then yeah, Tom Bombadil uses those same words in The Lord of the Rings, and basically Tom Bombadil is God, according to them. I don't know. I'm not so familiar with all the text that I can say that, but yeah.
Yeah, I just know in the Fellowship of the Ring, he holds the Ring of Power and is like, "Oh, that's a curious little trinket," and basically discards it as if it's nothing. And we know what that does to pretty much every other creature in Middle Earth. So he is up here, and Sauron's somewhere way down there.
Yeah.
But anyway, this episode gets a 9 out of 10 for me. It could have been a little bit better, but everything about it, all the nitpicks I had were mild compared to the entertainment I received from it. So very good episode.
That's fair. I'm gonna go 8 out of 10. Consistent, great storytelling. I really like the visuals, the acting, everything you all guys all said, and the music. It so much reminds me of the Lord of the Rings movies, but it's different enough to not remind me of it. And yeah, and like I said in my opening statement, in some ways it's more true to lore than the Lord of the Rings movies were, because some lines that were stolen from Tom Bombadil were given back to him. But anyway, not that important. 8 out of 10 for me. That will conclude this week's review of Champions for episode 4 of the Rings of Power season 2. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, help us out. Like and share this review and subscribe to our channel. And if you really want more of us, you can join our forum at sukarda.freeforums.net. We would love it if you do that. There's a link in the description below. Click it and you can register right away. Next week, we will be discussing episode 5, of course. And you can check out episode 9 of the Star Trek Project. That's also dropping this weekend on our channel. And in a few weeks, we will start our review series for Agatha All Along. For now, I thank you all also on behalf of our champions and wish you to never be binded. Bye.